What really happened to the deputy president at Kondele in Kisumu a few hours ago? What caused the very unfortunate incident, which should be condemned by all Kenyans? What does it all mean politically? In this show, I go very deep as usual, and I include information that you may not already have, that sheds light on what really happened, and very important, why it happened, and what this tells us about the politics of Raila Odinga and the politics of William Samoei Ruto, two major presidential candidates for the presidency in 2022, just a few months away as we speak. Karibu sana and enjoy. In the few hours since the incident at Kondeli, involving the deputy president's campaign rally in the area, much has been said about what happened, and much has not been said. We are in the campaign season, and therefore we expect a lot of propaganda, a lot of narrative created that does not respect the facts, which is to be expected during this season of highly competitive politics, especially for the highest office in the land. And so if you're looking for the facts, it can be very tricky. On our show today, we will state the facts without fear or favor. Fact number 1, Kondele is Raila Odinga's political bedroom. That is a fact. But Kondele is also the area in Kenya that has suffered the most harrowing politically related violence in the entire region since the 60s, and it seems that the spirits of those who have lost their lives in the Kondeli area continues to haunt the area and make the area vulnerable every time there's politics in the country called Kenya. Very unfortunate, but also a fact. Now, I've done several videos on this channel on Kondele, and therefore will not waste your time repeating myself. But I think it will be of great interest to you to know that Kondele is an area very close to my heart, because just a few meters away from this Kenyan political hotbed, I was born into this world at the hospital popularly called Russia. And no, I don't come from the area. What happened is that I just interrupted the transfer of a policeman being posted to a new location and passing through Kisumu. It seems I couldn't wait to come to this world. And now you can understand why over the years I have been very fascinated about this particular area in Kisumu. It leads up to the highway that leaves Kisumu town going to neighboring Kakamega town. Actually, Kisumu city going to Kakamega town. Kondele is mostly a slum area, although it is changing very rapidly. And if there's going to be any political trouble, you would be sure it will start in Kondele. On 25th October 1969, during the Kisumu massacre, the Kondele area bore the brunt of that particular very dark chapter in Kenyan political history. In 1990, shortly after the body of the then Foreign Minister Dr. John Robert Ouko was found at a place called Got Alila, which is on your way out of Kisumu town towards Nairobi, another road. Shortly after that, within hours, demonstrators gathered at Kondele and marched in protest towards the central business district of the city and were met with live bullets. Several Kenyans lost their lives. In 2007, late 2007, residents of Kondele went to bed very late in the morning, after wild celebrations overnight. And these celebrations were because they knew, according to the results that had already trickled in, that their candidate, Raila Odinga, had won the 2007 presidential elections. They woke up to very different election results. And many believe the troubles of 2007-2008 over those elections started in Kondele and spread to many parts of the country. In 2017, our most recent general elections, again there was trouble, and again precious souls were lost. Those are the facts about Kondele. Facts that I'm sure the handlers of Deputy President William Samoei Ruto were very keenly aware of, as they headed to the area for their rally a few hours ago. And there are many things that unfolded that don't make sense, at least not immediately, because we're sticking to the facts on this show. What I'm hoping to achieve is that I give you all the facts and you make up your mind for yourself as to who was responsible and what may have happened. Not only were handlers of the Deputy President very aware of the brief facts and history I've just given you, but they were also aware of the mood in the area even before they landed there. Indeed, long before they landed in Kondele. Youths in the area were already singing praises of DP Ruto's political competitors, ODM, and Raila Odinga. And they gathered very early in the morning to do this. And therefore what we heard from the police, the statement the police gave, that the intelligence information told them that there was going to be trouble, and they therefore advised the Deputy President to avoid the area, is stretching the facts a little. Or maybe it's just a problem of language. Unajua kizungu ilikuja na meli. The reason why I'm saying this is that intelligence is information you gather that is not obvious. But what we are talking about here was very obvious. It was obvious that some youths in the area did not want the Deputy President to address a rally at Kondele. Maybe they have been listening to the Deputy President's recent speeches hitting out at Raila Odinga, calling Raila Odinga mganga, etc., etc. Whatever it was, what these youths were doing is wrong. Political intolerance is something no Kenyan should give any room for. It is something that should be condemned from whatever side of the political divide it is coming from. It must be condemned at all times in the strongest way possible. If you don't like a certain politician, then simply stay away from their rallies. Period. Having said that, let us also not be naive, because there is no doubt that those youths were paid to do what they did. They were facilitated to do what they did. Now, what should have happened, especially with a man who wants to be our next president, a man who is supposed to be responsible, a man who is supposed to do the right thing? What should have happened is that the handlers of the deputy president and the deputy president should just have avoided Kondele. End of story. Nothing would have happened. No drama, no stone throwing. Nothing would have happened. And they would have ended their tour of Kisumu very successfully, because the deputy president addressed other rallies in the area the day before, and the next day, which is a few hours ago, when this very unfortunate incident unfolded. And so what does not make sense is why the deputy president insisted on going to Kondele. And it becomes even stranger, because if you look at the convoy of the deputy president and the arrangements that were made as the entourage entered Kondele, it is obvious they were prepared for war. Meaning that they already knew precisely what was going to happen. And to come to this conclusion, you don't even need the information I have. Just review the videos, and you'll see telltale clues of extraordinary arrangements that were made in this instance. And I'm afraid this raises the question that many people are asking. What was the objective of insisting on going to a place where you already knew there was going to be trouble? Even assuming that the deputy president's intelligence of what was happening on the ground was non-existent, which you should never believe. That can never happen. But let us assume that he was not aware. It is still on record that he was informed by the police to skip that particular area. So why did he still go? To grab the headlines, perhaps, which of course he did very successfully. Everybody's talking about the incident. Or perhaps to block Raila Odinga from campaigning in other areas in the country where the deputy president is popular. Because people will just say, we were not allowed to campaign in the area of this other candidate, and therefore, why should that candidate be allowed to campaign in our area? Something like that. Or perhaps the whole objective was to paint an entire community in negative light. A community which the deputy president already knows, whatever he does, will not vote for him. Perhaps that was the objective. And the truth of the matter is that the deputy president is on record as having commented about this community, the Luo community, and painting them in a certain way. And because I promised to sticking to the facts on this show, let me just play you an audio clip of precisely what the Deputy President said in 2019. And it is important that I remind you that in 2019, the Deputy President had already launched his campaign for the presidency. Let us just listen in.
Kwani hawa watu ambao wanatuambia saa hii story mingi, kwani sisi hatuwajui? Sisi tunawajua. Ni watu ya kubomoa. Kama hawabomoi chama, wanabomoa nyumba. Kama hawabomoi nyumba, wanang'oa reli. Kama hawang'oi reli, wanatenganisha marafiki. Sasa hii watu ambao tunawaelewa, alafu we are entertaining them for what purpose?
Yep, that is Deputy President William Samoei Ruto, a candidate for the presidency of the Republic of Kenya in 2022. And I'm sure you heard him loud and clear. But let us be fair to the Deputy President, and speak to all politicians, that in this day and age, you cannot say something today and hope to get away with it completely. Because in this day and age, and with the technology available, social media, etc., what you said some time back can easily come back to haunt you in a major way later. There is no way it will go away. These are not the days of Kano and newspapers, where it was very easy to accuse the press of misquoting you, saying what you didn't say, or quoting you out of context. Those days are over, thankfully. And what a politician says, even if it was a few years ago, is extremely dangerous. Let's take an example. Supposing this audio clip I've just played you was played in the Kondeli area that morning, assuming some cheeky person, some evil person, decided that I want to mess up things here. I want to cause chaos. All they'd have needed to do was to play that audio loudly in Kondeli that morning, and the results would have been very predictable. One would not even have needed to give money to anybody. There is something else that happened in Kondeli that doesn't make sense. A policeman was arrested. Now this one is super fascinating. This particular policeman, to start with, was not from the area. He was from elsewhere, the Rift Valley. And so the first mystery, before we even look at what he did, is what was he doing there? Tena in uniform. Had he come in plain clothes, then probably would have gotten away with the excuse that he was on holiday and had decided to come to this rally, which is within his rights as an individual. But he was in police uniform. And then he disobeyed orders. Policemen do not do anything without an order. Even throwing tear gas to disperse people can only be done when such an order has been issued. So this guy hurled his tear gas into a crowd and there had been no order issued, which means he triggered a stampede, something very dangerous. People could get hurt. That is yet something else that happened in Kondeli that tells you there were some people somewhere very determined to get the outcome that we ended up with. Persons unknown, because you need solid evidence to accuse anybody. But there's something very fascinating and indeed very unexpected that has come out of all these Kondeli manenos. Think about it for a minute. If you are planning this particular chaos with an objective, what should be happening right now is a narrative, one narrative, condemning the incident, maybe even condemning an entire community for political intolerance. But is that what has happened? No. Strangely enough, most Kenyans are blaming the victim. Aye. Now this is very strange. Very strange because most Kenyans do not have the information I've given you tonight on this show. But still, most Kenyans seem to smell a rat. If I can put it that way. Wow. Indeed, we have come a long way as a country. It is clear that it's not as easy to fool Kenyans as it was during the KANU days. Oh yes. Because these tactics, if indeed this is a tactic, remind me very much of the KANU days. In the KANU days, Moi goons would organize chaos at an opposition rally. And then they would later gloat and tell Kenyans to see for themselves what kind of people they wanted to elect to lead the country. President Moi would give a very long, passionate speech about peace in the country and condemn violence in very strong words. And at the very moment he was making this speech, his goons somewhere were raining terror on members of the House of Mumbi. In 2017, we saw these KANU tactics again. As Mike Sonko, the former Nairobi governor, told us, the Jubilee Party organized chaos and violence while dressed in ODM colors and blamed it on the opposition. And it would seem that there are very many Kenyans who firmly believe that that is exactly what happened at Kondeli. Admittedly, they have not shown us any evidence yet, but that is what they're saying. In my view, this reaction from very many Kenyans comes as a surprise, even to me. It must tell us something political. Could the people of Nyanza be telling the deputy president, through this very unexpected reaction, that they don't see him as a threat politically? Because the world over, people resort to dirty tactics in politics when there's a real threat they're facing, and whom they fear they cannot defeat fair and square. And therefore they decide to play dirty in their desperate attempt to defeat that person. But if that person is not a threat, they will change nothing by whatever they do. Then you simply ignore them. You allow them to do what they're doing, knowing full well that it has zero impact on your candidate. I get the feeling, and I could be wrong, that this is what this reaction is all about, because it doesn't make sense. And incidentally, this kind of reaction is not coming only from Nyanza, but from many other parts of the country. Now, I don't agree, personally, if you ask me, that the deputy president is not a political threat. No. I think he's a major contender. He should be taken seriously. That's my opinion. But obviously, there's some Kenyans who think different. I'm also expecting the police, at some point, to give us evidence, produce evidence, proving that money was being distributed in the Kondeli area. Because they have told us this is what caused the whole problem in the official statement released. Because if they don't, there are many Kenyans who will assume that this was the police getting mixed up in politics. Because that particular statement would be seen as trying to shoot down the deputy president's side, political side, and accusing them indirectly of distributing money. The police are supposed to do their work, very important work, without any interference from any side of the political divide. Like giving them information to sneak into a statement, to score some political points. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been rumors for a long time. There is a perception amongst the public. Go to any part of Kenya, they'll tell you that the deputy president is very generous and that during his rallies, he distributes a lot of money. That is the perception on the ground. And indeed, there are some instances where evidence of this has been seen. For instance, in the Kibra by-elections. However, one cannot work on assumptions over the serious incident that happened in Kondele. And I believe our police do not work on assumptions. God help us if they do. Of course, it's quite possible that they had some intelligence officers on the ground who saw what happened. And therefore they're very sure of what they're talking about. But in this instance, that should have been left out of their statement. Many times it's better just to keep quiet and not give any information. Because you could say something that could come back to haunt you later, even though you did a good job. That's always the danger. They should have simply said that we believed there was going to be trouble, and we warned the deputy president's camp to avoid the Kondeli area. Period. End of statement. But to include details where you would be hard-pressed later to produce evidence is not the way to go. Now, some analysts have compared what happened in Kondele with what happened in Githurai 45 in January this year, where the convoy of Raila Odinga was attacked in a similar manner. Some youths disrupted that meeting by throwing stones. I'm sure many of you remember that incident. How did the deputy president's camp respond to that? They were happy. They said that it was a clear sign that the hustlers, at Githurai at least, had rejected Raila Odinga. Now, I'm yet to hear any statement from ODM or supporters of Raila Odinga saying that what happened to the deputy president was a sign that Kondele had rejected him. Nobody has said that. And I doubt whether anybody will say that. Now. What does that tell you? I will tell you what it tells me. It tells me, in no uncertain terms, that the politics of Raila Odinga is very different from the politics of Deputy President William Samoei Ruto. Raila Odinga ignored the incident. He moved on. He never even talked about it. In sharp contrast, in the last few hours, the Deputy President's camp on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, are talking about nothing else. Even the Deputy President himself has spoken about it, condemning the police. I find all that very interesting. And of course, very instructive. Now, I have some videos I've produced in the past on Kondele, if you're interested in more details, in this very fascinating place, as far as Kenyan politics is concerned. You can take in those videos. Very interesting stuff. And I've put a link at the top right-hand corner of your screens, repeated in the description area below. Catch them in case you're interested in getting a true picture of this very interesting area with a very interesting history. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.